Hi, comic book readers, and welcome to another live episode of Elseworlds Exchange, unless you're catching the show after the fact or in audio format on Spotify under the Elseworlds Exchange, in which case, welcome to the show. I am,
Hey.
of course, here, joined today by Joel from Cape Joel, of course. We're here to talk about modern classic comic book runs, which, of course, is oxymoronic in its own right.
Yeah.
It is Jumbo Shrimp. It is the best little whorehouse, and it is the biggest little whorehouse in Texas. Like, it is all those things. A modern classic. I remember growing up, I used to listen to a lot of classic rock,
Yes,
and there used
likewise.
to be and there used to be a like a stinger on there where they're like Q104.3, where it doesn't have to be old to be classic. Oh wait, yes it does. And then they promptly played Nirvana, and it was like, it's not exactly the same thing, is it? But that's kind of the fun of it. We're talking about, like, we know what the classic runs are. Like, everyone can point to, oh, I want to get into Daredevil. What do I read? Well, you got to read the Miller run, and you got to read the Innocenti run,
and Bendis.
and Bendis. And it's like, yeah, we know the runs. Like, and everyone can list them. Oh, I want to read Batman. Well,
Denny O'Neil.
and Jim Aparo, Norm Brayfogle, Alan Grant.
Any of the Jim Shooter era editorial Marvel stuff.
Exactly. So there's a ton of runs that off the top of your head, but we're talking about those runs that are happening, or we're in, or have happened and have not yet gotten the distinction, or maybe they have, but we're here to declare them.
Indeed. I had a bit of a crisis myself. It's like, oh my God, am I old? Because I set a rule for myself when I did this. I'm like, okay, let's try and keep them within the last 20 years, basically when I've been online working in the comic sphere, stuff I've read recently. And then as I went back a little further and challenged myself, I'm like, oh my God, these are pushing 30 years. Some of these, oh my God, what is going on with me? And I started to spiral just a little bit.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, like, things that got me into comics or got me back into comics. And I think we have to put restrictions on ourselves, because otherwise we'll be here all day talking about runs from 5 years ago. Because, we're still talking about, like, the modern era, like the modern age of comics, like it hasn't changed into different eras since 1986. And it's like, we got to draw some distinctions.
And there were some sad cuts I had to make. I'm like, no Marvel Knights, that's pushing 30. No Ultimate Spider-Man, that's pushing 30 years. As great as they are, those are not modern anymore.
No, I think that they've fallen into the realm of classic. Like, whenever I pitch Spider-Man, someone's like, I want to get into Spider-Man, but I don't want to get into side books, and I want to read one creator. And I'm like, well, then you have to read Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yep.
It's got 2 creators for like 112 issues or whatever. Like, you're good. And then when it goes to Imminent, it's even cooler. Like, so you're still fine. But Ultimate Spider-Man, I think, is a classic run.
Yeah, no doubt. I think everyone would agree with that. I think it has stood the test of time. I think we see its effect in everything that has come after. It launched a whole universe, and then it ended a whole universe too, but then didn't even really end either. So I think we can say that Ultimate Spider-Man more than earned its stripes. A couple other ones there, I'm like, oh, I want to put something by Gail Simone here. I love Secret Six. I don't think anyone else would call it a modern classic like I would. I'm like, oh, but what about Birds of Prey? Oh, Birds of Prey is even older than Secret Six. What about Christopher Priest, Black Panther? Okay, yep, that's also pushing it.
That's pretty old. Yeah, no, it's true. It's when we get into, like, what is a modern classic. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, one of the beautiful natures of comics is that they are, evergreen. That anyone can pick up, like, a book, like Stan said, and get into it, and suddenly find themselves like a big fan, and then realize that that book is 50 years old.
Yeah, and you're part of a bigger universe than you could ever know. And hey, what you like in this book may have been retconned in and out of existence several times.
Exactly. Your definitive run, the definitive run that you have gotten into, maybe you weren't reading comics and suddenly you found it and someone handed you this trade paperback from 45 years ago. Although I think that trade paperbacks didn't even exist until after 86. But that being said, it's like, oh, I'm now finally caught up. But it's like, my sweet summer child. I'm sorry to tell you this, but
You'll never be caught up.
You will never be caught up.
It's my job to be professionally caught up. I read dozens of books every week, and I'm still not 100% caught up on everything. Someone will surprise me every week and be like, well, actually, Joel, this happened over and da-da-da-da-da.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, I don't know how the editors keep it straight. I would argue most of them don't. But this show, when it is live, is sponsored by viewers like you. If you want to help us out, you can use a super chat, ask a question or comment. It'll be here on the show. If you're watching the show after the fact and you still want to do that, there's actually like a super button you can click that does that. But if you want to more directly help out the channel, you can always go to patreon.com/comicpop and help us out there directly. You get early access to shows. There's actually a letters page up there right now. And of course, back issues when I have a chance to actually edit the damn thing. I put it up as I can over on Patreon first, and then it goes out to the rest of the audience out there. But as far as modern comic runs, I was like, yeah, 20 years has to be the cutoff, at least. Yeah. And we just made it for me to be able to say that Bendis' New Avengers
there you go.
is a modern run, or is a modern classic. I think that more people than would care to admit got into the Avengers as a result of this.
It's true. We got to give the man his due. It was a very exciting time in Marvel Comics, and this book was really a poster child for that. I remember when when the rollout started for this, it was inescapable as a comic reader. It was huge. There was such this air of excitement around it. And again, it brought it back to, hey, let's talk about the Avengers as this weird kind of dysfunctional family, as this weird, group of people who shouldn't be together, but are, have them bounce off each other. You get Spider-Man in there, you get Cap, you get all your favorites, some people who had been Avengers before and some people who hadn't been. It was this wonderful little mixture of the more classic quintessential Avengers and also some more street level people. Wolverine, of course, as you're
exactly
showing right now. Yeah.
This is and as I understand it, pretty much started with a Marvel Summit meeting where Bendis goes, "Why isn't Spider-Man on the Avengers?" And everyone just went off in uproar where they're like, "Spider-Man isn't an Avenger. He could never be an Avenger. He's a loner." And Bendis being like, "What are you talking about? He headlined Marvel Team Up. He's teamed up with every character." And just Quesada and Brevoort just looking at everybody going like, "Wow, everyone's really upset." That sounds like a recipe for success.
Let's do it.
One of the few times that I agree where, outrage related to success. But I think the difference is, if I may editorialize for a second, that the outrage needs to come from within as opposed to without. Indeed. Right now, they're like, ladies and gentlemen, the most reviled Spider-Man Elseworld story you could think of is getting a sequel. That's an FU middle finger. That's gonna force you to buy the book, or at least they think that's what's gonna happen.
Yes, no. They're grifting, they're rage baiting is what they are. We don't know what you want, we don't know how to give you what you want, but we can make you hate read stuff. We definitely know what you don't want.
Yeah, we absolutely know what you don't want, and we know how to make you angry. But I think that the way to do that, the way to fix it, or to weaponize that, or profit from it, is to just make editorial angry. Do something that would make them angry, and because they'll be not that they'll be fighting against it tooth and nail, but at least they'll be frustrating.
Yeah, and that was always Bendis in his prime too. It's we're going to be upsetting some apple carts. We're going to be changing some paradigms on this one because I'm a writer, man, and that's what we do. Good art should be challenging, and I'm going to be challenging you with some of these things.
Precisely, but not only did the New Avengers run, because it was a ton of issues. I don't recall off the top of my head, at least 60 of New Avengers, which I think
runs used to be longer. That's another thing too. As I sit and look at this, runs used to be much longer.
Yeah. It's actually, we have to almost redefine what a run is in the modern parlance, because when you look at other runs where I got to do almost a dozen issues before they reset the series, but I didn't reset the narrative. So there's at least 2 or 3 different issue 14s in my run.
Yes, there's a lot of back to number ones. I know too. I fought to put it in here. It's okay, look, no White Knight by Sean Gordon Murphy, no Spider-Man life story. Those are great stories, but they're not runs, is what they are.
Exactly.
They're limited series. These need to be runs. They needed to actually run for a long period of time.
Yeah. I can't even really count the JMS Spider-Man run at this point because I think that's pretty old. I think that might be too old.
But it might be the same age as No Adventures. We were trying to crack that one. It's oh God, this is older than we remember.
Right. Morlun is 20 years old at least. But with respect to the New Avengers run, that also gave way to like the Bendis run on Marvel, where it was like just nonstop Bendis hits and I don't know, declarations where it was like we got House of M, we got Secret Invasion, we got like everything except for Civil War. Basically, was a siege.
Dude ruled the roost for a while,
right? And occasionally we get something like Fear Itself, where it's like, oh, thanks for action. But yeah, man, that's the Bendis run on Marvel, but propagated by the New Avengers. It is a classic. I don't even think it's a modern classic. I think it does hold up. You can read it, and it's like, oh, this is exciting and fun and interesting and different. And it's still somehow different. I thought, oh, this is going to change how comics are like written and made. Kind of.
There was definitely the Bendisification of the story arc. Everything got longer. Everything got like a little stinger at the end. He definitely helped popularize the idea of like, no, we're writing for the trade people.
Oh yeah, no, that concept, which was totally foreign to people like Mark Gruenwald, was very much old hat by that point. And of course it was. You're talking about people from the independent world who were only making books that were sold as trades, especially from groups like Image Comics.
Absolutely. Again, another way Bendis upset the apple cart. It's like, no, we're writing for trades. Like, no, we're pulps. We're pulp magazines, though, is what we are.
Yeah. And he's like, okay, fine, whatever. Like, we can do that, but but I should mention that there's another modern comic run that comes out of Image, and it is, of course, Saga.
Yes, I think. Yeah, again, I put mostly superhero books on mine.
Me too. No, but I have to give a quick shout out to Saga because it is a modern classic.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone's talking about it anymore. Like, honestly, I think that the 2 or 3 year hiatus they took
kind of killed
significantly damaged the book. Yeah, the book itself hasn't changed in terms of quality. It hasn't dipped in writing or art, but it did dip in public consciousness.
But you know what? I think that'll change when they inevitably make a movie or TV show out of it.
Well, and of course, this book was made specifically to never be adapted. But of course, like that's just a challenge to the creative people in Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we heard that the unfilmable comic was finally filmed?
Yeah, twice.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think Saga is one of those things where it did also, I don't know if it changed comics, but it certainly did make a big deal. And it has never had a blemish in its run. It's uninterrupted, and well, except for the 3 year, but only self-imposed. True. And I never had any like terrible spin-offs or any garbage. It's just it's a classic. When it's done, people will be talking about it forever. I wonder if there's a book that doesn't count because it's not a modern classic. It is just a classic. That's Bone from Jeff Smith.
Yes.
And we do wish him a speedy recovery because Jeff Smith did suffer a heart attack not too long ago, and he's taking a break from everything for a while. But
also showing some love to the cartoonist side of comic books as well too. It's like, hey, it's not all men in tights. It's not all mind-bending indie series. Let us also pay homage to the fun cartoon stuff too.
Exactly. But I fear that Bone may have been too ahead of its time because no one talks about it enough. And it is one of those things where it's like, it is an unblemished run. It has spin-offs, but those are also helmed by the creator. And it's just a beautiful book that has never stopped or never tripped. And no one talks about it anymore. So I wonder if it is a classic because like, what is a classic? You know what I mean?
Well, that's all up for debate. Speaking of Bone, I felt very good last time I was out in Victoria visiting my aunt. Her son, my cousin, had just come back from the local school book fair. Yes, they still do book fairs. How cool is that? Right? And guess what he had in his pile? He had a collection of Bone stories, and I'm like, that's nice. Awesome. That's what I like to see. You got that completely independently because it looked good and because the quality speaks for itself.
Damn right. That's exactly right. So yeah, I think that Bone is a classic because it is over 30 years old. But I think Saga might recapture the classic nature that Bone deserves, and I don't know if it actually has gotten.
If we are counting modern indie stuff here,
Yeah.
do we have to throw Walking Dead in there too? Because it
Yeah.
was such a phenomenon, and like it was a black and white book that took the world by storm, and that's probably never going to happen again. And it only happened because Hickman was such like a shrewd businessman Kirkman, yeah, because Kirkman was such a shrewd businessman and negotiator to be like, hey man, aliens, yeah, you want to do my zombie book now? And he basically helped either ride or kick off, depending on who you ask, the zombie trend that held pop culture in a fucking chokehold for what felt like a decade. And like the show is a different beast than the comic now. And again, I think he really exercised his creator control to be like, the book's ending now. I'm just going to end it now because I can.
Yeah. This book is only 13 years old.
Wow.
So yeah, I'd say that Walking Dead is a modern classic, especially because it has ended and you can read the whole thing. It has only been helmed by Kirkman. And it changed the game in its own way. Or maybe I don't know if it changed the game, because I don't know if like everyone's taken their P's and Q's from Walking Dead in terms of like the approach and how the whole book came about and how it became this like media storm of a juggernaut of a property.
Well, I think it did kind of start an arms race, at least amongst the studios, all wanting to find the next Walking Dead, and probably a lot of indie creators got to get their next book greenlit by saying like, oh no, this will definitely be the next Walking Dead.
Absolutely. No, it is the Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back of comic book runs, where it's like, oh, every once the X-Men hit the box office, every single property was picked up by every studio. That's
pretty fair. And every zombie idea got greenlit too for a bit.
Exactly. Yeah, I think The Walking Dead counts, but
I mean, it's very impressive. And you talk about like all the spin-offs. I'm not even talking about the shows. Those Telltale games are pretty goddamn great, and that's in the same universe, and that the medium got to be adapted to something else completely, and it worked, and it told its own story, and that for like a whole group of people, those Telltale Walking Dead games are their Walking Dead if they never even read a comic.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive in and of itself, where it's like, well, you just created a world and a tone and with themes and ideas that, you know, were able to adapt to other stuff.
Yeah. The other problem is, Walking Dead did come out 20 years ago.
It's
just on the razor's edge.
God damn.
But I think it's worth bringing up because it does feel like a book that hasn't been around for 20. Like it feels like a more modern book. It is a modern book, but it feels like it didn't. I think there are people who would be surprised to find out that it's over.
It's because it never went away is the thing. There's always been a show. There's always been a game. There's always been something. It's never gone away, and doesn't look to be going away anytime soon. Gamescom was just this week, and we're doing like an Elseworlds Walking Dead game, and there's the Daryl Dixon show, who wasn't even original to the book, was a show creation, and is having a life outside the comic.
Right? Absolutely. So, while that is a contentious one, I also want to bring up this book. I don't have a lot of familiarity with it, but I do know that it definitely, I think it belongs here because as far as fans are concerned, this run, again, pun intended, it was a consistent, well-selling series that could not be matched when it was picked up afterwards. And that, of course, was the Joshua Williamson run on The Flash.
See, yeah, I almost put that on here, too, because, like, he was the only guy who stuck around from DC Rebirth and wrote every issue. And he wrote, like, 100 issues, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
That alone in the modern age is impressive, and you got to give the man flowers for that, because it's completely. No one did that before, and seemingly no one has done that after. He must have been doing something right.
Right, and that all comes from a position of love. The person, dude loves the character, sold himself to that character, and never walked away, and thought about when he would walk away, how he would do it, and if and what would bring him back to it if he were to do it. And it's like, to his credit, he is kind of like, he hasn't secretly brought the Flash into other things as a deliberate method of like writing about the Flash. Like even
he's
in his
side characters in.
That's true. But like even like you it's easy for you to be like, oh, Flash is the linchpin of Dark Crisis, right?
Yeah.
No, Flash is in it constantly. I think he's in every single volume. They're constantly, everyone's like Barry Allen, but he doesn't appear, doesn't do anything.
It's the whole impetus. Flash goes missing into Multiverse 2, and that's the whole thing. He kind of kicks it off.
Right, exactly. But yeah, man, I think that that is a modern classic for Flash fans. You know, it's,
indeed.
If you're going to say like, oh, the Mark Waid run on Flash is a classic run, then Williamson deserves that kind of honor.
There's been quite a few. I would say it's right up there with the Wade run and the Johns run. And also, hey,
Yes.
it's a book, too, that was called on to actually fix a lot of mistakes at DC Comics, where it's like, oh, how do we explain Robin's gulag? How do we explain friggin' Thomas Wayne over there? And Joshua Williamson steps up to bat. I'll explain it. I'll do it.
I know who these characters are.
Yeah, Reverse Flash was behind it all. And hey, too, that was the book that also helped catapult him to that next level, you know, to the stratosphere of DC Comics, to where basically he's the main creative driving force now in the company. Like he's the well from which all of this springs. And it happened because he wrote such good, solid, consistent Flash stuff for so long. And before that, he did horror books before that, right? Nailbiter was him, right?
He did Nailbiter, that's right.
Which I fucking love. And hey, you know what's great about Nailbiter? Bendis shows up in Nailbiter as a character.
Yes, he does.
I fucking love that. And the serial killer in the book is like, oh, you're my favorite, Bendis. You kill so many people. Yeah. I love it. God, I love that scene so much.
It's a great one. And I think people know, like, he talked to Brian about doing that first. Like, he was like, hey, you want to be in the book?
And I bet he was just tickled about it.
Right? But I think that that deserves distinction as a modern classic. And it's very much like that I think is emblematic of the show, where it's like we're talking about what we're calling, like we're calling it now. Mm-hmm. Like while we're even in the midst of these runs sometimes, that these are going to be modern classics. Like I think it's fair to say that Jed MacKay's Moon Knight is going to be considered to be a modern classic for Moon Knight.
Because it made people give a shit. It stuck around way longer.
It's still going, and people are reading it.
Like, I know, wild. And again, it helped catapult Jed MacKay to that next level where he did Black Cat, he did this, now he's doing Avengers because, you know, hey, game recognized game. And also, Doctor Strange, that's right, he did that too. It also, like, beat the clock on, like, whenever there's a new Marvel TV show or movie, you know you're going to get a new book to tie into it. And a lot of times they don't last. This one was clearly commissioned to coincide with that Moon Knight show, and yet this one beat the odds, stuck around, offered something completely new and completely different. And yeah, the audience was there. They were hungry for it. They wanted to like Moon Knight, and Jed MacKay gave them what they wanted.
That's true.
It's also just like fun and cool and psychological because you get to see Mark in therapy and working through all that other stuff. They recontextualize for a modern era what Moon Knight even means, where it's like, yeah, I protect those who travel by night, the homeless, the sex workers, you know, the people who need defending, who you never see regular heroes defend, but I do because that's my thing.
Right. Talking about modern runs that are also definitively over. I think we have to give a shout out to Hickman.
Yeah.
Modern classics. People are going to be reading Hawks and Pox forever, and they're going to go, oh my God, where did this go? And then people are going to go, don't read Inferno, please, for the love of God.
It went a lot of places. Yeah, I struggled to put this one on my list because technically it's not done yet what he started, but it's also kind of done because he was basically done with Inferno, and then they all went in their own directions after that.
Yeah. But this is a run where it's like, it will be considered to be it is currently a modern classic. I believe one day it will be considered to be a classic X-Men book.
Yes, where every issue was an event, every book and spin-off was interesting and compelling, and you wanted to know the whole story, you wanted to know what was going on, or even if you didn't, that's fine, because X-Men was a buffet at that point, and you could pick what you want, and you could enjoy it, and it all told a different part of a bigger story, and just what a magical time. And also, totally breathed fresh life into the X-Men line when it needed it more than anything. This was like right after we had come off like the whole weird movie shit there, where they had just been the X-Men were basically like how Spider-Man is now, only running in place, you know, being a weird shadow of its former self. Then as soon as Hawks and Pox comes in, it's a big deal again.
Absolutely. It's funny because like that is they're talking about it right now where they're like, oh my God, X-Men is about to mean something, people. And I'm like, it was a big effing deal. What are you talking about? Yeah. And they're like, no, but like now, you know, Brevoort's going to be taken over. And I'm like, So
It was already a massive deal, and it had been a massive deal before that even.
yeah. Now, of course, we have to mention Zeb Wells because Zeb Wells, of course, is one of the greatest writers at Marvel right now. Of course, killing it on Spider-Man, his run on Spider-Man. While obviously the whole episode will be dedicated to his run on Spider-Man, I thought we'd do a quick shout out to his run on Hellions because I know you love this series.
Yes, I do.
Tiffany loved this series
We
as well.
do.
Zeb Wells, you can't deny he crushed it on this run. And I don't want to necessarily make this the X-Men hour because I know there are just straight up set, like, there are series
There's too
from
many
Hawks
good
and
X-Men
Pox
series, yeah.
that like represent a thing you couldn't have gotten without Hawks and Pox that now exists here today. Hellions will be, I don't know if it'll be remembered, but the people who loved it.
Sure
And for
did.
them, it is a modern classic.
It filled that Secret Six-sized hole in my heart for a little bit, is what it did. We're just these weird, fucked up, quirky characters who bounce off each other, these weird little psychos who, end up finding this sick sense of family with each other. It's also like a great chapter in the weird X-Men saga that is both Psylocke and Havoc. Because technically, neither of them have held books for very long in this Hickman, Hawks and Pox era. Yet
no, but they do keep popping up, which I think is really cool.
It is, and like it's all a continuation of the story. It's all the same thing, and it also kind of becomes meta too, where Havoc is like, yeah, even in this new X-Men Paradise, I never found my place. I just kind of bounce back and forth from thing to thing. And like even in X-Men Dark right now, it's like, yeah, I finally got to be with Madeline Pryor. I finally got what I wanted. And all it cost me was the entire world as we know it catching flames. But I guess I'm happy, but I feel bad for being happy. And also, I'm the only one who thinks that we shouldn't kill people, even though everyone else thinks we should be killing people.
Exactly. And again, I don't want to make this the X-Men hour, but I think that while I don't hear a lot of people talking about it, this is a run that has been going on for a while. And I think if they can stick the landing, because I do believe that not after Fall of X, but rather when Apocalypse returns and they do the Age of Apocalypse event, which I've been teasing forever. I don't believe there's ever been any evidence to support that they are going to call an event Age of Apocalypse again, but I firmly believe they will.
Because why not? I mean, you already reused Inferno. You already reused Secret Wars.
Yeah, no, exactly. But I do believe that if they can stick the landing with Beast and Wolverine, the Ben Percy run on Wolverine will be considered.
Much like Joshua Williamson, you got to give Percy his flowers too, because he has stuck on through Hawks and Pox writing X-Force and Wolverine, and that's pretty goddamn impressive. I'm multiple volumes behind, but I know one day I'm going to catch up.
Yeah, exactly. It's a solid run. The art has been consistently cool, although it never really reaches the Kubert levels that it used to have. But it's still consistent and it delivers, and it's one of those things where it's like, I grew up during a period when there was never a gap in Wolverine books.
Yeah.
And there was always like there's always a Sulu on the Enterprise. There is always a Kubert on a Wolverine book.
Yeah.
But I do truly believe that this series here is restoring Wolverine to his former glory. Yeah, his prominence. Exactly.
It's funny too, Hellfire Gala, they actually are kind of letting Wolverine sleep a little bit, because I had a moment there where it's like, oh wow, everything's getting really interesting in Fall of X. I want to read at least the first issue of everything. When's the next Wolverine coming out? Oh, it isn't. Oh, he's in a Ghost Rider event? Really? That's where they put him? No kidding. Oh, Percy writes that. Okay, that checks it. Actually, that's smart, though, to let him slumber for a little bit and really make people, hunger for to see what Wolverine is doing.
Exactly. And what's going to happen? What's going to become of Beast?
Yeah, that's right, because he wasn't at the party either, because him and Wolverine were having it out, I guess.
Yeah, they wrapped the Beast thing. They have it's the end of round 2, basically. Like, we will get another payoff for Beast, but for right now, we can let that rest for a minute. Now, Joel, you got to talk about this run because, of course, it is a modern classic. I think everyone agrees, to the point where I think the Philip Kennedy Johnson run on this is just going back. They're just like, okay, we're not going to go the Cates route. We're just going to go back to Ewing, and that's the Immortal Hulk.
Yeah, Immortal Hulk. I mean, to even describe the book, you kind of sound like a crazy person, because it went through so many eras. The first era where it's like, hey, let's go back to making Hulk a horror character again. Let's make him scary. Let's have some paranormal adventures with Bruce Banner. Oh yeah, he can't die also, which he technically already couldn't die, but now we're really gonna, dig into the philosophical nightmare that is, that you're in a constant state of rebirth and your suffering will never end. And then we're totally going to shift gears in the second half, and it's going to become a fiery political, story, wherein people adopt the Hulk as a symbol of, smashing the broken institutions. And the Devil Hulk is like, yeah, that's my thing. I want to smash everything that is broken so it can be rebuilt. And then we switch gears again in the third half, and it becomes a biblical Jobian tragedy wherein the Hulk tries to have an audience with God himself to ask, why do you make me suffer, O Lord?
Yeah, I was really hoping it was going to be like it's gonna be like Animal Man, where like Hulk was going to talk to his creator, which it kind of does, but
he
it's kind
of does.
It doesn't go that hard, but it's still like
it's very old Vertigo. Again, a lot of people compared it to Swamp Thing early on, and it's very much like the best Swamp Thing stories. And I'm actually like an issue behind on the Philip Kennedy Johnson one. I like that they're like, look, we did a Cates thing there where it got a lot of weird and crazy space stuff, and Cates sadly never got to finish it, and we now know why he didn't get to finish the story he was trying to tell. But I like Philip Kennedy Johnson's like, nope, we're going back to horror. Back it up. Back it up. That was good. There's still a lot more in there. Back at the fuck up.
Well, and I think he has something he wants to say about it, but also I think he's like, I think if we're smart, we should just do the thing that people come to expect from the Hulk now.
Yeah, I also really like the villains that he's doing there. It's like, when you close the green door, that lets something way worse in there. These horrible Lovecraftian skinwalker creatures. Totally. And also it looks to be involving all the other Marvel monsters, of which there's so many great ones.
Yeah.
Again, to keep singing Immortal Hulk's praises, it brought back Zemnu, the original Hulk, and told told like a really interesting Twilight Zone story about the dangers and pitfalls of nostalgia.
Right.
Which I did not see coming, which is a brilliant story in and of itself. And also, had one of the best, most prominently focused on trans characters in modern comics.
Yeah.
I loved the build up. Yeah, I loved the build they had with her. You see her coffee mug. And I'm like, wait, is she? No, is she? And then they tell a whole story about like, I was, working for the Kingpin, making black market HRT, like you do.
Yeah, right.
Fucking love that story.
Yeah. But I think when people pitch Hulk now, they're like, well, you need to read Immortal Hulk. Like it used to be, well, if you can get it, you got to grab like all the Peter David stuff, which I think is why anyone likes the Hulk.
Yes, because it's a much more bigger concept than it normally is. It's funny. Hulk used to be such a simple concept. He gets angry and he smashes. Now it's like, well, what's your pitch though? What's your long game? What's the meta text of your Hulk story now?
Right, exactly. Which I think is really fun. Like that's a great like development of that evolution of that character.
Oh, it made the leader terrifying again, and also referenced every bit of leader canon ever, where it's like he dies a lot, doesn't he? And Ewing was like, yeah, he does, and let me explain in great detail why that's important that he dies a lot.
Right. There is okay, so this is not so much a run as because I define runs as like in continuity, main series, multiple issues kind of stuff, right? Like Immortal Hulk. Immortal Hulk was like in continuity. They a couple of books paid it off, although fewer than I would have expected.
It had like 50 issues, I think.
Yeah, exactly. But but I think the greater Marvel universe didn't really pay it off. But it's one of those things where it's like that's kind of what a run is. But there are also these like mini series that have come out certainly in less than 10 years, some of them less than 1 year, that I have to shout out because I just love them so dearly. And it's just Tom King working for DC. Up in the Sky is a triumph. It's one of the best modern Superman stories written in the last 5 years.
It is, again, I was reticent to pick this one up because I felt so burned after
I know
Batman.
his Batman, but this.
Again, I think he is much better suited to Superman because his weirdo dream logic that he regularly falls into makes so much more sense with Superman, where it's like, yeah, again, it is this dream childlike logic. He is the man who can do anything and everything. And it's like a very positive take too, in the fact that King didn't seem to feel the need to like deconstruct and pull the strings on the sweater.
You would have thought he would, and yet
he's like, nope, Superman ain't broken. And I'm like, good.
Boom.
We agree, Tom.
Right? But also, Mr. Miracle from him and Miss Jared's. This series was incredible. It's the one people think of when they think of Mr. Miracle. Like, when you're talking about modern classics, you also talk about like definitive takes on the character, and like that's what this is. Like, Mr. Miracle is the book.
Undoubtedly.
And it's Tom King's kind of like, not final word, but it's certainly his loudest word on the fourth world.
Yes, and also, again, amazing color theory in this book. I so rarely ever get to pull that out of my arsenal, where it's like, no, this one has really good color theory. And hey, it was so popular and so definitive when the frickin' Harley Quinn show made reference to Barda and Mr. Miracle. They recreate that cover you just showed in a comedy show.
Right. Similarly, Strange Adventures,
Never
unbelievable series. Oh, it's worth reading so bad. It's such an incredible book. But also another definitive, not definitive, but like it will be a definitive run on
Adam Strange. Yeah,
on Adam Strange,
because not everyone's rushing to tell that story.
No, and for me, it's also like a problem that it's a definitive run on Adam Strange, and you'll understand why if you read it. But like, it doesn't negate how good it is. Similarly, Gotham City Year One is another incredible book that needs to be read. That is also
I didn't read this one either, even though this is totally up my alley, because it's like, oh yeah, old timey Gotham, pre-Batman, the old families, and it's also kind of a Lindbergh baby caper, and like Slam Bradley's the detective in this, isn't he?
Yes,
the detective of Detective Comics, the guy who actually predates Superman and Batman.
That's right, and like originates in Gotham. This book is sick. And finally, of course, Human Target, which like
also haven't read.
Oh my God, this book is just, it deserves the Eisner it won.
Did it? Okay.
Oh yeah, and you'll understand why if you read it. But like,
I didn't hear many people talking about it. Again, okay, if you're saying that, if he made Human Target interesting,
this is the closest thing to a perfect comic book there is.
Really? Okay.
And it has a lot to do with Greg Smallwood, but you know.
Okay, I have some reading recommendations then.
Yeah. And of course, hang on, I'm getting my pictures here.
Yeah, go for it. I'll vamp. I'll kill time.
Oh, here we go. It's did I get it? Okay, that's good enough. This is a run I didn't read a lot of, but I also have to acknowledge that it is a consistent run that never really stopped, and made every effort to kind of define or redefine the character, and that's Kelly Thompson on Captain Marvel.
Yeah, I was going to say, I also put, the other Captain Marvel series in here too, mainly because I looked at my list and I'm like, a lot of old white dudes in this one here. Would be nice to, give some love to some female people of color. Crazy. Yeah, I heard great things about this too. This is the one where like they turned her evil for a second, but this is the only one that I hear people talk about that isn't the Kelly Sue DeConnick one. So it must be good. Right. Because the Kelly Sue DeConnick one, maximized conversation for so long. It was the one the movie was kind of based on. Yeah, this one has also been in my to read pile for a bit.
Yeah, and but it is for me distinctly Marvel. That's and no pun intended. I just think it's like it feels like a run. It feels like a true die in the wool, like this is a comic run on.
It also does some sweeping retcons, doesn't it, with Carol's parentage to tie in to the new movies. I remember that was a big thing.
I think they did it in like a book called The Life and Times of Captain Marvel, but I think she also wrote
that. Which was running at the same time, which is what always confused me. She has a sister, doesn't she have like a Shi'ar sister or something?
Yeah. And I think you have quite a bit to say, and I will agree with you on this, which is, of course, G. Willow Wilson's Ms. Marvel.
Oh yeah, I mean, lightning in a bottle, magic whose likes might never come again. They have tried to recreate what G. Will Wilson did, and it hasn't worked. I mean, people have put in some good efforts, but it's just like, man, you had something so special there. You had early Peter Parker Spider-Man special here. It was also a thing that kind of took over culture for a little bit. It actually managed to penetrate the membrane that is comics to where I saw people just in the regular world talking about Ms. Marvel. Yes. She became this like symbol even to non-comic readers. Like CNN was talking about this when it dropped. It was huge news, and the stories were good and they hold up. And like, it was just every issue felt like an event, and it also was being written for the trade, but it also kind of bucked that trend where they're like, no, we want to try and reach a different audience with this. So every issue kind of did feel like a one and done there for a bit. Also, hey, one of the best books to make use of the Inhuman stuff at that time in Marvel.
Yeah, that's true. Oh my God. And now thrown away.
Yeah, how about that?
Kind of. Only 50% thrown away.
Only 50% thrown. They can always come back.
Yeah, I can't talk about this much, but I will have to admit that like there's an omnibus that exists out of this, so you have to speak to it in some way. But that's Saladin Ahmed's run on Miles Morales.
See, again, I went back and forth on loving that one as much as I did. I really tried to get into in the beginning. He's got some good stories. He invented some stuff that kept going, like what is it? Miles's relationship with Vulture's granddaughter and everything. Introduced some new villains. Kind of planted the seeds for a return to the multiverse. Let Uncle Aaron be alive again and be a character for a while.
Right? No, I think that there's. While it didn't speak to me directly, and of course, like there's no book, that won't always happen. But this book, I think, helped to truly redefine Miles Morales and make him a character. Because one of my major complaints has always been, I don't really care. He's not. It doesn't matter. I don't really. Not that I don't relate to him, but more like I relate to him too much. I don't really care. Like I already have Spider-Man,
Ahmed did the thankless job and the heavy lifting of really having him make sense in the Marvel universe again once Bendis left, because Bendis got to write his first couple of runs, and this was Bendis near the end of his Marvel stint where it's like, I'm just doing whatever the hell I want. So, try and stop me.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like Marvel/editorial will leave you alone if you consistently hit particular numbers, and that's what Spider-Man did.
And admit it created new characters like the Assessor and everything, who is wonderfully creepy. Did a good version of the Clone Saga. What is it? Just did like a lot of heavy. Oh, it explained the whole. Hey, why is my last name Morales, but your last
my father's name is Davison. Jefferson Davis.
Yeah, Jefferson Davis.
Yeah.
Which is a beautiful scene. And in fact, I would not be shocked if that showed up in a movie at some point, because it's a really well done scene. In fact, I would probably speak higher of that series if the new Cody Ziegler series, I think, didn't blow it out of the water in a very short amount of time.
Right.
Like, it's too early to call that one a modern classic, but if it keeps going at the rate it's going, and if it doesn't get fucked over by all these goddamn event tie-ins that it's forced to take part in, I think the Ziegler series is already on its way. And the fact that Ziegler is doing this while also writing for basically every TV show under the sun is a goddamn miracle. Like, I found out, he's writing that new Futurama revival. Oh, he's writing this, he's writing that. I'm like, where does the man find the time?
Right. That's fair. And say what you will about this creator, but you can't deny their record run on the character, the contributions that they have put forth for the character, and the fact that the inexorable establishment of the Superior Spider-Man, thanks to Dan Slott and Dan Slott's run on Spider-Man. Now, I know Superior Spider-Man counts, but I say all the way from when he was on things like New Ways to Die through his Amazing Spider-Man run, because Superior Spider-Man, the original book, is about how Peter Parker is the Superior Spider-Man.
Yes, that is the ultimate, thesis at the end of it all, which I think people miss.
That is the thesis. Yeah, but Superior Spider-Man also was a book that created new fans of the character called Spider-Man.
Yep. It got people in. It was fresh. It was exciting. It was something you had to pay attention to. It's also, it kind of looked like on the outside, like it was, rage baiting, where it's like, oh,
Right?
Dr. Octopus is Spider-Man now. But then you read, it's like, oh, no, you actually did this with care and thought. And obviously some people were so mad they never read it or went in wanting to hate it. But I think time has been very kind to Superior Spider-Man. And I think if you look at the grand scope of Dan Slott's writing, and there's a lot, I would say Superior Spider-Man is the cream that rose to the top.
Absolutely. It's certainly, I think it's the culmination. Like it is the conclusion. Like the true conclusion of the Slott run, even though it limps on further.
For like 5 more years.
I know, yeah. It's like, no, it ends at the end of Superior Spider-Man. Like reestablishing Peter Parker as Spider-Man, having him be truly the Superior Spider, like that's the end.
And then he kept going, hey, let's see. We'll know in November if he can make lightning strike twice.
Yeah, I think they screwed that up. There's another like modern classic, or rather, it certainly feels like it will be, and that would have to be Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo's Nightwing book.
Yeah, that's going on right now. Again, I put his Injustice in there first because I thought Nightwing was a little too new at the moment. But yeah, if it keeps with, the momentum that it's going right now, it probably will, because it feels fresh, new, and exciting, but also quintessentially classic DC Comics.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like this is the one where it's like, oh, let's get nuts and talk about a book that A, hasn't ended, and B, every week every release doesn't really change anything or make anything new. It just enjoys where it is, and has capable people being capable.
Yep. It also sets up the new Titans book. It's also a very art forward book, so much to the point that every so often you'll get an issue with a fun gimmick. Hey, here's a Nightwing issue that's all told from the first person. Here's one that's like an endless Scorsese tracking shot.
I've never seen anything like that. That first POV book, holy crap.
Pretty brilliant, right?
Yeah, and I've seen people toy with the idea, but never really
to that
go
extent.
that far with it and succeed. Like make it look easy.
And I say gimmick, but that's actually selling it short, because it's not a gimmick, because it continues to grow the organic story that they did from day one, helping to further tell the story of this new villain, Heartless, the relationship between Dick and Barbara, who I think they've never been cuter as a couple in this. I'm loving it.
They've almost never been allowed to be enough of a couple the way that they are in this book. Like this book is one of those things where you're like, oh, this is what happens when you allow a status quo to remain for long enough to actually live in it. And that's one of the things I actually talked to with Josh Williamson on our show over on this channel, where it was like my main complaint with most runs, with most like controversial or new status quos, is that we don't live in the status quo enough to really like establish it and enjoy it, or miss it.
I agree. It also like succeeds in balancing a dozen different genres that you wouldn't think. You get a gritty crime story, you get like a magic story, you get stuff with the Titans and like a Batmite character all back to back, and it all makes sense as part of this beautiful tapestry. And hey, it also serves as a great opportunity for Tom Taylor to showcase, his eye towards social commentary, explaining why Bloodhaven is this broken city, why it's different than how Gotham is a broken city, and how people like Blockbuster, thrive in corruption and graft and everything else. Heck, they did a one-shot issue about the evils of cash bail, which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah, it's true.
And I know he touched a nerve, because there was at least one person in my comment section who lost their fucking mind because someone dared to invoke the evils of cash bail. And I'm like, dude, it's almost a quintessentially American thing. We don't have it other places.
No, it's true. Are there any off the top of your head you want to cover before we jump into some super chats? And because I know there's going to be a lot of overlap with things we already have talked about,
for sure.
haven't talked about yet, or would like to touch upon.
I guess to keep something kind of modern there, Keith Giffen's Blue Beetle, which I think might also be over 20 years old now. I feel like you kind of got to give that one its due, because it's the Blue Beetle that everyone tries to emulate. It's the one that everyone loves. It's also kind of a sad story of a book that got canceled before its time, so people didn't get the ending they wanted, but it's been adapted all over the damn place. In the new movie, in that second season of Young Justice, the footprint that this series left is huge, and it's also a sad story of like, this should have been so much more. You should have been DC Spider-Man. They really should have ran with you, Jaime. You were basically Kamala Khan. You were basically all these other characters years before they came out, but you're a sad casualty of how comic books, especially DC comic books, fears the youth.
Right, of course.
And fears feeling old.
Or at least like they allowed a culture of fear of the youth and of the next generation to permeate their like whole DNA. But yeah, Jaime deserves to be up there, man.
Yeah, certainly. I think, we are still feeling the effects of this series and this run. And also, no one's ever really come close to it after, which is kind of sad. They've tried so many times. They've taken so many swings, and it's just never worked because I think people don't want a new Blue Beetle series as much as they just want to go back to this and want a proper conclusion to this.
Yeah, that's true. There is one other run that I want to call out before we hear from the audience, and that has to be a run that I was like, oh yeah, that is an unstoppable, unblemished, nonstop. Like this series, it is for a lot of people like the definitive run on this. This will be the definitive run for these characters, and I could never imagine that in a world like. But we're here now, and that would be the IDW Ninja Turtles.
Oh yeah. I hear nothing but good things about this. I am not as big a turtle head, though. Maybe that will change now. Maybe I'll finally get a chance to get into this. But yeah, I hear nothing but good things about this series.
Yeah, this series has successfully scored off of like side ideas, like silent issues, spin-offs, new turtles like Jenica.
Yes, again, I'm looking at one of the new turtles now. Again, the last time they tried to launch a new turtle, everyone lost their goddamn mind.
I know it arguably killed the franchise. Although I would say that like the whole execution of that show killed the franchise in its own way. But it didn't because the franchise kept going. Literally, there isn't a generational law. Doesn't have turtles, their version of it.
But they're getting a new one right now with the new movie, which I have not seen, but is getting great reviews, and it's getting a 2-season TV show spinoff.
Oh, you would love it. You would love it the most. You would dig it the most.
So I hear.
But yeah, man, this series, this Ninja Turtle series needs to be more available. I've seen it. It's funny. Like somebody asked me recently, do I have like copies of it? And I'm like, yeah. And I went to go look. I have 2 copies of Volume 1 and one copy of Volume 2. I think there's like 6 or more copies or more volumes of this series.
Not counting spin-offs.
Yeah, I actually went to a bookstore the other day and like looked for it, and I found like something called like the best of.
Oh.
And it's just like a bunch of random issues of the book. It's not just more of the book or the book in sequence or.
Oh, come on, IDW, do better.
I know you're a fantastic book publisher. You know how to print books. I don't understand why it like is so hard. And then I found they made like a floppy, like a trade paperback version of the hardcover, and that's what it is. It's just the hardcover, but doesn't have a hardcover. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's better because it's more available. But what they need to do is they need to make like, because the book I think is 150 issues, something like that. It's like it's a massive run, and it's like the same. Like, I think Tom Waltz has been writing the whole damn thing the whole time with these.
Oh, really? One creative team.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why it's like that's a definitive run.
Which you don't get as much anymore.
Exactly. But I'm like, why isn't this everywhere? You had a movie. Where is the like compendium? Where is the omnibus? Like, where are the Invincible or Walking Dead trades? Like,
that's so true. Amazon killed it so hard. It's like, hey, we got our new show. Now read the books.
Boom, boom, boom. Like, yeah, volume 1, 2, 3, 4. Got them. I mean, look at what's it called? Even The Boys.
Yes. Oh my God.
Those damn things, and it's like, I hate The Boys.
I was going to say, I actually think I have my copy here that they sent me because they sent it out to a bunch of critics where they're like, hey, remind people these exist now and you can get them.
Right. And that they're cheap.
Yes, they are.
Like, because new fans and young people don't care
about
they
quality.
Well, and you can still
about page quality and paper quality.
Yeah, it's good. Like like all the print copies on like Walking Dead, Invincible, Boys, it's good. It's just a little less expensive. Hell, even the Bone Compendium, which is just the Bone book, that one's a little too unruly. I wish they'd split that up a little.
You know what? Had those Turtles books been available, I probably would have picked up the Turtles just because I've heard nothing but good things. And because the action figures are inescapable right now. Every store you go to, they got the whole team all done up there. I'm like, that's smart. That's how you do a multimedia blitz.
Totally. So jumping into the super chats really quick.
Yeah.
Bryce Harriet says, is it easier for smaller characters like Daredevil or Flash to have classic runs due to less editorial oversight? You said this in Frank's Daredevil. Obviously. I mean, yeah, no. I mean, like you have
feels hard to deny.
Exactly. Sometimes it's easier to just fly under the radar than it is to like make a big splash and then keep making splashes because that's what you're known for. It's actually not unlike YouTube, where it's like
where you catch on because of quality. Again, even Immortal Hulk like that too. Hulk's a big character, but he's not like a massive character until he was outselling Batman. And the fact that happened totally organically is yet another reason why that book is so special.
Yeah. Ray Farr, ComicPop Woo, thank you very much, Ray. Due to Sal's recommendation, I picked up multiple trades of the Tom Taylor Nightwing series, and I love it. ComicPop selling books.
Nice.
That's nice to hear. Thank you. Yeah, man. Tom Taylor be crushing it. And
sure is.
I guess you could consider like Deceased and things like that to be definitive runs.
That's true. Like, spawned a lot of sequels.
But they're also Elseworlds. Yeah,
it's true. And like they're also max series. Like Dark Knights of Steel ended this week, and I'm like, wait, this wasn't done yet?
For me, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I dropped this book like a hot potato because I couldn't like make heads or tails of when the damn thing was coming out. But now that it's over, maybe I'll read the whole thing.
It's pretty good. I imagine it would probably make a great back issues episode at some point.
I agree. I think you're right. Thank you. John Cotta, if we're talking about the last 15 years, then the only things I can call truly classic is Court of Owls, Immortal Hulk, Zdarsky's Daredevil, and probably the whole Krakoa era, even though it's not over yet. I mean, like, listen, I hear what you're saying, and I think you're not wrong about a lot of these things, particularly stuff like Court of Owls, or at the very least like Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's run on Batman.
Probably the most like definitive of the New 52 runs, probably like one of the most like this in this moment you felt like the whole experiment could work because this was so good, right?
Yes. Yeah. I think it's not inconsequential to say, I don't think it's controversial to say that this thing that the success of Snyder and Capullo's Batman like overinflated the value of New 52.
Probably because it was so good. And like there was other good runs around that like that like I would fight for that you probably wouldn't call classic. I loved Gail Simone's Batgirl at the time. I don't know if people would call that classic, but I loved it. Shit, Jeff Johns' Aquaman. Aquaman was so popular at that time. He had an event and a spin-off team book.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Was that the Aquaman and the Rest?
Aquaman and the Others.
Yeah, that's right. Fantastic name. That was going to sell books.
They had cool names and designs. I like Prisoner of War. I'd write a Prisoner of War book.
But I was very critical of the run when it was coming out, and I gotta admit that like every subsequent run from Snyder and Capullo onward, I've gone, it's not as good as Snyder and Capullo's run.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people like that. Like, there's been good stories here and there.
Yeah, there's been good stories, but they're not like
to like really, kind of grab everyone by the throat. Like, you could not ignore Capullo and Snyder's Batman. It was inescapable.
Yeah, it's absolutely true.
Where like all these other runs, you can kind of ignore them. I'm really enjoying what Zdarsky's doing and everything, but like for the people who are like, meh, I stopped reading because it wasn't a multiverse. I'm like, well, I guess I can't blame you.
No, it's true. And I can't give Snyder full marks because like while off the back of the New 52 run, his Capullo run, he became like the architect of the DC universe and took it
catapulted him to the next level.
It's true, but and took him in bold, strange new directions. None of which I would say are as successful or as memorable as his run on Batman. The Batman run itself is in the top 3 for people. Like,
and it was a lot of people's first Batman runs, and I think there's something really magical about that too. That for a whole generation of people, that was when they first really started reading comics.
Yeah. Everyone will be talking about this forever.
Yeah.
And they were when it was happening.
They were, yeah.
But even if you keep reading after Court of Owls, you will still be entertained.
Yep. There's a whole saga where Jim becomes Batman.
Right. And it's not bad.
No, it's actually quite solid.
And it's got its own origins, it's got its own like 0 year, like there's all that, which I can't deny is influential and well executed.
Yep.
Despite how much I hated it at the time.
Yep.
But yeah, that is like, if you're talking about modern classics, the headline is Snyder and Capullo's Batman.
It's hard to deny. Like, again, if you just threw that out, that would be the knee-jerk reaction from everyone, and they're not wrong.
That's true. And then there's Zdarsky and Chichetto's and Michael Osborne and other people's run on Daredevil.
Zdarsky the run on Daredevil for this episode.
Exactly. Zdarsky's run on Daredevil counts as a new modern classic because there
It
are
just ended last week.
it just wrapped up, so we could say like, oh, that's the whole run. I didn't love it. I loved it as it went, and as it kept going, it just kept not it just kept losing me.
Interesting, because you see, I would compare it to Immortal Hulk in the way that one of the reasons I liked it so much is it kept changing its identity. Because the first, the first year, because there was 3 years of it that you could like fully cut it into. The first year is pretty classic, down and dirty, Millerian Daredevil, fighting the powers that be and everything. We get new villains in the Stromwind twins, who are very interesting as far as Daredevil villains go. We're not super villains. We don't have costumes. We just, embody predatory capitalism. And they're not even really punished in the end either, which is another thing that I'm sure was a solid point of like, villains like this never get punished.
Right, exactly. Now, there's a lot to love about it, and all the window dressing and all the ideas that come out of it are valuable. The things people remember
Elektra becoming Daredevil.
Elektra becoming Daredevil is the thing everybody remembers. But like Daredevil being in jail again, but done through Zdarsky's lens, worked. It was an interesting concept.
It feeds into a much bigger theme. There's basically 2 big themes in his Daredevil series. Can a man truly change? And fuck the prison industrial complex in the United States are the 2, and it's true throughout the series.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think it gets away from itself. I think it does inevitably collapse under the weight of its own like success.
Do you feel when Kingpin's not in the book anymore, it kind of suffers?
No. Because Kingpin wasn't in the book very much anyway. It was just my issues were it was a really well executed, like I really enjoyed it when it was in New York, when it was dealing with street level characters, when it was once he gets into an island and he's marrying Elektra through like a hand ceremony, like his sudden and like abrupt, like dogmatic belief in like the hand in the fist.
Yeah.
I was just like, where did this come from? Like this was not, it didn't organically spring from the narrative. For me, it just kind of happens.
Well, it's literally because the devil made him do it.
I know. But I'm like, that sucks. You see, for me, I'm like, that's not enough.
Now, I really wanted to talk to you about the ending of this book because I liked the ending specifically because of all the things it doesn't do and all the things it leaves open-ended. Like the Stromwind twins, they basically get away scot-free because of course they do, because those people are never punished. The hanging plot thread of Goldie, his, retconned friend from school, who may or may not have been an actual real deal Judeo-Christian angel who says, Daredevil, the reason your life gets ruined every 5 to 8 years is because God is testing you, because you are his greatest soldier, you are his greatest champion. They never go back to Goldie, even after the hand reveal. And I think there's something really compelling in that when we pull back the layers, because it's like, maybe God really was involved. Maybe it wasn't always the hand.
Right.
And the fact that Daredevil gets resurrected in the first place, and even when they have Man of Science Reed Richards come in there and be like, yeah, there is no scientific reason behind why so many heroes are constantly being reborn. Maybe there's a divine reason behind it. And then to have the big final panel be like, can a man change? Kingpin changed, Elektra changed, Cole North changed.
Yeah,
Matt Murdock cannot change.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I do like that.
I mean, he kind of does change, in which he, like, the whole, like, Fist Island thing was him changing his approach to crime and everything, beating up supervillains, putting poor people in jail. It doesn't work. I need to do something different, and going to jail showed me this, because I have seen how the other half live, basically.
Yeah. Now, but he is going to still do that, though.
And he's still going to, and therein is the big problem with superheroes. The status quo is always returned to, even in excellent stories. The status quo is always. I'll be really interested too to see what Saladin Amid does with that, because it's like, oh man, talk about big shoes to fill. But that's kind of where Saladin Amid lives. He came into Spider-Man after Bendis. He wrote like the best Black Adder. He came into Miss Marvel after G. Willow Wilson. This is just kind of where he lives.
That's true.
And where if no one is already expecting much from you to begin with, that means you'll probably be able to get away with more.
That's true. Oh yeah, no, he will certainly have a longer life on this book than he would on a bigger, more like higher exposure book.
Yeah.
Bob Gukian says, Sal, we all know you hate Guy Gardner, but does Nathan Fillion playing him make him tolerable? I mean, I'm so hyped for it. I love the idea of Fillion doing anything, much less playing Guy Gardner. It's fantastic. I'm so on board.
What do we think the audition process for that was? Do you think every actor had to go and press their hams against the glass?
Yeah.
In this Guy Gardner scene, and Gunn and Safran was like, yes, I like this guy.
Yeah, I think that the audition process for Fillion in this case was, hey, Nate, you're playing Guy Gardner. Click.
Cool.
Nate Dogg, Tomasi and Gleason Superman. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. You're right.
Yeah.
Like, there's been so much time and distance from it now. But yeah, it's kind of hard to argue. And also, it was just like a great era in Superman too, because like that and Action were good. And I consider them part of the same whole, even though they really weren't, because, they were all telling very different stories. It does kind of get a little deflated, though, with the whole Mr. Oz thing and where it all ended up going. But that wasn't their fault.
Yeah, no, we don't blame them for that. We know who screwed that up.
It was good at the time. It's just sad when like, oh, this didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, no, it's a real shame. But it was a good book.
It
was a great, and I think it was a great run. And I think like, it's funny. I don't think DC has any reverence for it, and I don't think they're like pushing it in any way. So
the TV show has more reverence for it. The CW Superman and Lois show is
yeah.
basically just living where this book's set up.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think that counts.
Yeah.
Sean D, howdy, Sal and Joel. Would Slott's Spider-Man count? I know a good deal of people don't like it, but I do. I loved it for a while. And I think, yes, it does, because it was like, it is a influential, definitive run on the character. And so, yes, it does count as like a classic or a modern classic run.
Superior is definitely the cream that rose to the top on that one. So much to the point we're getting to revisit it.
Yeah, that's true. Supreme Omega says 10 to 13 years should be the limit of discussion. Well, we decide what we would do on our own show.
Yeah.
Silvery Cricket, I once got someone who actually actively hates and looks down on comics to read Jason Aaron's Doctor Strange. While their opinion on comics really hasn't changed much, they do have a soft spot for Strange.
Well, that's nice.
That's awesome. Yes, Doctor Strange, Way of the Weird, his run was a really, really influential and definitive, now classic run. You can only point to like 3 or 4 Doctor Strange runs. The Oath is a mini series or maxi series. I would call it a definitive run on the character and a classic run. Even though it's mostly just Brian K. Vaughan writing about Doctor Strange for like 8 issues.
I see your Jason Aaron Doctor Strange, and I raise you Jason Aaron's 8-year-long Thor saga.
That's right.
That's from God Butcher to Jane as the goddess of thunder, to like literally the end and all the spin-offs in between, to War of the Realms, the event he had, and I loved every second of it. It was wonderful. And again, I feel like he left such a big imprint in Thor that everyone else was just kind of juggling around going, we don't know what to do next. And obviously we're in the Immortal Thor era now, which I haven't actually read that new issue yet, but I'm very excited to check it out. But yeah, I mean, Jason Aaron on Thor. It was from the Marvel Now era. I started covering that book when I started reviewing comics over on Name Redacted. And the fact that it stayed so good for so long through so many eras, and the fact that it has already inspired the movies and everything else, I think its like will almost never come again. I would say it's probably up there with the Simonson, Justin, like he just wrote the shit out of it for so long and touched on basically every era and everything from Thor lore.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. In fact, Aaron's run on Marvel deserves, I think, a minute just to talk about, because the way we did with Bendis, the way we did with Tom King, where it's like, say what you will, but Aaron had a run, like a definitive run on friggin' a lot of characters, and had a lot to say, like the Avengers.
Yep.
Which I hated.
Every
minute of.
I remember defending it to you for so long, and then after, I think it was it was the one with freaking Hyperion and everything. I'm like, okay, this is too much now.
Yeah, Heroes Reborn. It was everyone finds a stop on the Aaron train.
Yep.
Especially when it comes to the Avengers, but long running series.
Yep.
Never really stopped
at all.
Yeah, he got to do whatever he wanted, and no one at Marvel cared.
Did they ever resolve Evil Coulson? I always said, like, look, if you resolve Evil Coulson, I'll come back. But I
assume they did. I
don't think they did. I think my buddy Matt told me they didn't actually resolve Evil Coulson.
The chat will tell us. But Aaron's run on Doctor Strange, another definitive run for the character. and of course War of the Realms, but like more the Thor run. I'm just using War of the Realms as like kind of a placeholder because it represents like the culmination of most of his Thor run. But like Aaron's Thor, everybody points to Aaron's Thor as like
making
a definitive
Thor
run.
unworthy Thor. Like there was like mini series in this
Mighty
series
Thor
that were good.
Yeah, absolutely. Now this is Aaron's influence on Thor, Aaron's run on Thor. It is definitive, and I would also argue, despite a lot of people being mad at me about it, his Punisher run.
Yeah, I would say that is a new benchmark for Punisher. It's so good that Marvel isn't even rushing to undo it, where it's like, we'll have a mini series with some other schmuck there because we don't want to undo how solid the ending was on this one. And it is. Yeah. It's the story of Frank Castle facing his own ultimate punishment. Who watches the Watchmen? Who punishes the Punisher?
Yeah, I love it.
And again, a lot of people hate that because it's like, no, he should never be held responsible for anything he's done. He's a good boy. I'm a good boy.
He's not held responsible, but he's also a villain.
Well, and he also kind of runs away from his punishment too. He doesn't even wait to hear what the Avengers have to say. And I've heard some people say, no, going to Weird World, which, hey, another Jason Aaron thing that he did.
Yeah,
is his own form of punishment and everything. He's punishing himself. I'm like, you could read it both ways.
Totally. 343 Burning Legion. Yay, more Silent Chill to get me through this 12-hour shift. Enjoy. Good luck. Stay well. Make sure to stay hydrated. Douglas Caldwell Miller and McNiven's Old Man Logan. Is that a run or more of a story? We've been like kind of playing fast and loose the rules, but like that run, like I think that the Bendis Sorrentino run is more of a run than Old Man Logan. But Old Man Logan I don't think it actually had its own book. I think Old Man Logan was like within the pages of Wolverine. So I think like technically it is a run. But yeah, I think Old Man Logan was written by Miller to be a like graphic novel.
Similarly, it's probably not a run because it was a weekly series, 2 weekly series, but Avengers No Way Home, Avengers No Surrender.
Yes, those were great.
And they're probably my favorite modern Avengers stories.
Easily. Nothing
has gotten quite close to it. And my favorite thing about it is it doesn't even feature AAA Avengers is what it does. It's the B and C list team, and it's awesome.
Right, that's right. It's the B Squad.
Great new villain. And who was the villain in that? The Challenger or something?
Oh God, no! It's the Arbitrator or something. God, he's so forgettable. It's the Grandmaster, but like it's the original Grandmaster.
It's the old Grandmaster.
Yeah.
I was gonna call him the Gambler, but that's not it.
The roaming gambler.
Basically.
Yeah,
you say he's not memorable, but he serves the purpose in that story perfectly.
He does the job.
It's a classic Avengers set. I am big, evil, bald, cosmic bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he challenges people to games. That's the thing.
Yeah. There's one that we need. I can't believe we forgot to talk about it. And it's the Fraction run.
Yeah, again, I think this is also almost like just over 20 years old, but again, it's the most relevant Hawkeye story ever written. It's the one that everyone thinks of. It's the one that the show is based on.
Yep. No, it is. It's the one. It's the one Hawkeye run everybody likes.
A beautiful moving work of art. The thing that gave us Kate Bishop, who became a character in her own right, full of spin-off potential. And it also gave us the Tracksuit Draculas, bro.
It's exactly.
And culture has never been better for it. Okay.
Yeah. 2012.
No. Okay.
That's 10 years.
Well, there you go. Why did I think it was
900? I don't know. I have to say Remender's Uncanny X-Force with the best Apocalypse-related story ever. It is a fantastic ending as well. We're keeping Evan dead from an event no one read remains insane to me. Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm really surprised Evan was not brought into the Krakoa era.
Yeah, I know, right? In fact, hey, while we're on the subject of Evan, let's talk about his adopted father, Deadpool, who had one of the best, longest runs ever in the Jerry Duggan Deadpool run.
Yes.
I feel like people only remember the first arc with the Dead Presidents, which was co-written by Brian Posehn, but no, he went on for like 6 more volumes after that, and he wrote probably my favorite version of Deadpool as this sad clown in a world he never made. Trying to make sense of it all, and gave him a daughter in this too, Agent Preston, who is one of my favorite supporting characters, and one of the saddest, most heartbreaking endings ever, where to put right what went wrong in Secret Empire, Deadpool has to literally kill his own mind and destroy all of his character development before he finally escapes from the asylum, and the orderlies are all Marvel editors. How about that?
I love that.
Oh, and he also carjacks Jerry Duggan at one point too, and it's like, yes, we're doing an Animal Man fucking drive.
Yeah,
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and I don't think Deadpool's recovered from this.
No,
Deadpool's had a string of just kind of like things that happen and people who write him.
He was never as big as he was in this era. This is also the era he became an Uncanny Avenger, and Duggan is now revisiting that in his new Uncanny Avengers book. And I think he seeks to imply that he wants to get a little justice for Deadpool, where he's like, look, I had a great thing going, and then Secret Empire kind of derailed it. He made lemonade out of lemons, though, because those were also really good stories where Deadpool, you know, against everything, actually kind of backs Evil Cap to protect his mutant daughter.
Yeah. Hobbs want to call out Priest Deathstroke as a definitive run on the character, and McKay Moon Knight will absolutely be remembered as a classic. If it's remembered, it will be remembered as a classic.
Yeah, that Priest Deathstroke book is really good, where he's just straight up a villainous protagonist.
Right.
That is really good choice.
Good call. I've been reading older stuff recently, but the modern stuff that I've read: Ultimate Spider-Man, Detective Comics Rebirth, Tomasi Gleason Superman, Action Comics Rebirth. Yeah, the Rebirth run on Batman and Superman. I think they're great. I don't know if they're modern classics
too. That's the Tynan one.
That's true. Yeah,
it's certainly the most exciting Detective Comics has been in a long time. It's like, nope, it's a Bat Family book now.
Well, you feel like that's what Tynan wanted to say about Batman.
Yeah, even more so than his own like solo Batman run.
Right? It's true. Josh E. Lee, I think IDW TMNT run has been some of the best comics I've ever read. That's fair. A lot of people love that run. When they find it and they discover it, like, they love it. Peach, speaking of classics, I was just reading Claremont X-Men's run on issue 166. What are some other things that I should read for X-Men? Thanks for all you do. Honestly, like, there's a ton of X-Men. I would just jump onto Hawks and Pox and go and just go in a straight line and just grab books that you enjoy or that you are excited by or interested in. As far as classic runs, you got to read the Dark Phoenix Saga. You got to read it. God Loves Man Kills. You got to read. I think that the Whedon run is really good.
Yeah. Definitely some good stuff there.
Right?
We gave love to Deadpool. We got to give some love and appreciation to DC's Deadpool, and I know she would hate it if I said that. Harley Quinn from Palmiotti and Connor, which again was one of the biggest things that came out of the New 52. It's the reason Harley is the fourth pillar.
Yes.
Of DC Comics now. She went from being a sidekick to being a major player, and basically her character journey has never stopped from that moment. It's the thing that inspires the show now. It's the thing that, Harley in the movies is taking inspiration from. Beautiful art, very funny. It also ran for like 100 issues and had like a dozen different spin-offs of varying quality. But again, I think if you go back and read that Harley series, it has a beautiful timelessness to it.
Yeah. Well, Amanda Connor's art is just one of those things that I just love to look at.
Absolutely. But, it's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Scarlet Hottie, Far Sector is something that I feel like it'll be a classic and looked back upon fondly, in my opinion. Yay for New Elseworlds Exchange. I agree, only in as much as I hope people even remember the book existed.
Joe is sticking around. Joe keeps showing up and stuff.
I know.
So clearly, there's fans for it, and I appreciate that. I remember in the Pride anthology, they did a really beautiful black and white story where it was black and white, but also green. So whenever she showed it, it was green. I'm like, oh, that's really clever, actually.
Totally. Tiknoros, hey guys at work, wanted to thank you guys for what you do, making the shift bearable. I just wanted to ask, are there any runs that you found to be almost classics that seem to miss at the end? I would argue the Daredevil run is that.
Yeah, we've talked about a couple where it's like, ooh, close but no cigar. Ones that like I definitely think would be but weren't.
Yeah. I think that Tom King's run is one, like on Batman, is one of those things where I'm like, this is probably for many people a definitive, a modern classic run on Batman. I disagree, but I also it is. I don't disagree. I don't like it. That's it. It's nothing to do with whether I agree or not. It's just that I don't like it.
I mean, culturally, besides Kite Man, hell yeah, what else is really stuck around for it?
Right, exactly. Like the confusing use of Thomas Wayne Batman, the resurgence of Bane as a villain. KG Beast and what he did to Dick Grayson, like
fair enough.
Alfred's death. I don't know.
Yeah.
All things that he didn't want to do. Ray Farr, I really enjoyed Looney Moore's Houston run too, or Looney Mooney's Houston run too. I prefer Moon Knight with unconfirmed mystical elements. Also, Gerard Way's Doom Patrol was amazing. Agreed. Doom Patrol. Gerard Way's Young Animal, Doom Patrol was great and definitely deserves to be on that list.
Made it fresh and exciting again, and even the show started borrowing from it as well.
Yes. I also agree that Houston's run on Moon Knight is a definitive run for Moon Knight. Cat Lair will defend for treats. I tend to think post 2012 New 52 as the current era because both Marvel and DC felt different. Stories like Fraction's Hawkeye and Wade's Daredevil were very different. Maybe I'm wrong. It's just a vibe thing.
Oh yeah, Wade's Daredevil too, where before Zdarsky, I think people were saying that was like a definitive Daredevil. Daredevil's had so many goddamn great runs, and even between that, you have Soul. People probably won't agree with me that the Soul run is great. I think the Soul run is great.
Yeah. The thing about Wade also is that Wade was on Daredevil back in like the 90s.
Really.
So Wade got to return to Daredevil. Yeah, remember when Wade Insomni was a big thing that was like, oh, I want to see their take on every character. And then they just stopped doing it. We got like Black Widow, we got Daredevil, we got Captain America, and then they just stopped.
Yep.
What the hell? The Milkman says Jaime Reyes, Blue Beetle, Dan Abnett's run on Guardians. Agreed.
Oh yeah, there's
Immortal Hulk, Grant Morrison's new X-Men are modern day classics. Yeah, Grant Morrison's new X-Men is worth bringing up as well. That's
I know for some people it's contentious. I feel like some people either like
very contentious.
I feel like some people either like the Whedon run or like that one. I feel like it's hard to find people who like both.
Yeah, I'm a big dummy, so I like the Whedon one more than the Morrison run, but I get why people love the new X-Men, and it makes a lot of sense to me. Tevia says Superman Rebirth and Super Sons classic runs. Yeah, I think Tomasi's run on Super Sons.
It was just such a great era for Superman in general, and I would put Super Sons in that as well, that it has such fans, such, ardent, people who have really clung on to it, and many cursors won't shut the hell up about it. like, don't get me wrong, guys. I love it too. Yeah. It's not coming back, guys.
But it's over. It's over. It's over. We're going to see flashback books.
They tried to give you a digital series. Now they're giving you a backup in the main Superman book. Actually, hey, when we're talking about Superman stuff, Warworld Saga, I think as like a run in a bigger story, I think that one will live on as like an actual collected trade forever. I think Warworld Saga is very strong. It's the thing that made me a Philip Kennedy Johnson fan.
I'm sure Philip Kennedy Johnson would thank you for it.
No, not a fan of the Warworld Saga.
I just couldn't care less. I'm sorry. I just don't care, and I'm just not interested.
But it's Superman remaining good and pure under these huge odds, and he adopts 2 kids and everything, and they also
great.
They make the Mongol who is actually a much more interesting take on Mongol than ever before, because we actually get a flashback to see he was actually just a regular kid at one point too, who got fucking stepped on by this world, and like, oh man, if he had met Superman earlier in his life, or if he had his own Ma and Pa Kent, he might not have ended up this way.
Oh yeah, well that's the case with everybody. Steampunk, does Ultimate Spider-Man count as a modern classic? And the Ultimate Universe has had some influence on Marvel media outside of comics. Yeah, I think the Ultimates counts as well, but again, over 20 years old. So we tried to limit it a little bit.
We also remember how like the rest of the Ultimates kind of ends.
Yeah, it doesn't work out.
Marvel 2-in-1. Again, I know.
Marvel 2-in-1.
I know we're just kind of gargling Zdarsky's balls on this one, but seriously, it was very good. It made me give a shit about Fantastic Four again for a minute.
That book was great. That was one of those things where I'm like, oh, I mean, you could also say like Zdarsky's run on Howard the Duck was a definitive run, because it like really is and we're not talking about definitive runs. We're talking about modern classics. I don't know if Howard the Duck counts, but maybe he does. Maybe he does. Supreme Omega, does the original Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle run fit into the bill? To me, Jaime is the last classic DC legacy hero in the vein of Tim, Kyle, and Wally.
Oh yeah, we counted for sure.
Yeah, we do.
Hey, gotta give some love to Donny Cates. Donny Cates is Venom. Venom became the biggest thing at Marvel for a second, launched a huge event, and also I feel like they haven't quite been able to recapture, try though they might. I know Ewing is doing his own thing on that book. It's all very primer time traveling. I dropped off on it, but I'm hoping to come back to it at some point.
Yeah, I really don't care about whatever the hell Ewing is doing with Venom at all.
Something with time travel. I don't know.
I'm gonna do something with time travel.
The last story I read was like Dylan Brock. He was in California and he was hanging out with a suntan biker man and everything, and he got involved in like a biker war. Oh,
cool.
Yeah,
that's something.
It was definitely something.
Yeah, but I do agree that the Cates run on Venom is
it made me give a shit about Eddie Brock, and I think it also made a lot of people give a shit about Eddie Brock when they didn't think they would, because they were all in on Flash Thompson, so much to the point that the first volume even meets that criticism head on, where Commander T-Rex there, the guy who recruits him, is like, well, I wanted the other Venom, but I guess you'll do.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's true. That was a good run, and for a lot of people, like, That's the one. If you want to read Venom, that's the one you read.
Again, it made him so likable, Eddie Brock. And again, they made him likable by also not being afraid to like cast aspersions at him too. Where it's like, you have had more second chances than any fucking person under the sun. Why should we care about you, Eddie? And to have him basically break down, go, I don't know. Stop yelling at me.
I like Eddie Brock, the comeback kid, the king of second chances.
He really is. And I'm like, wow, that's so smart that you zeroed in on that for his character. What is the essence of Eddie Brock's character? He always gets a second chance.
Yeah, he always gets another shot.
Yeah.
And nobody knows why.
Yeah.
Jose, hi Sal, hi Joel. Though after seeing Sal Superman in the Authority video, he might not agree. Superman Warworld Saga is one of the best modern runs.
Hey, you and me, Jose. You and me. Let's form a club and get jackets.
Exactly. Enjoy your Warworld jackets. They look like BDSM outfits.
Yeah.
Denial. I'd like to submit Percy's Ghost Rider if I can stick the landing. If it can stick the landing, there's a lot of grit and horror and makes the rider scary itself as a supernatural Terminator for the wicked and paranormal. I keep hearing about it, but like I also hear like it's forgettable.
Might have to check it out. Again, I'm shocked that that's Wolverine's first outing after the Hellfire Gala, is that he goes off to a Ghost Rider crossover.
Yeah, that feels like he wrote that and then was like, oh man, I have to do a friggin' thing. I have to tie it in. Lenny Laserdisc, sorry if I came late. If I came late and this was already discussed, so I wanted to support anyway, but Immortal Hulk, immediate classic. Yep, naturally. A lot of people love that one. It's definitely up there. GTMQ8, I really need to catch up with a lot of these great runs. Thank you for your reviews and all the comics love. Hey, if we sold some books or people are interested, they're like, yeah, that's great. Then this show did double duty, and I'm happy about that.
Hell yeah.
Cat Lawyer, please do a Tom King and other creator retrospect. I like that idea. Just a show we're talking about a creator. No, it's true.
I think we did a Snyder one.
We did do a Snyder one. Yes. Yeah. Dex Baker, thanks for the super sticker. I will see it on the repeat. StreamYard has still not added the stickers. Infamous Mike Manhattan, Monstrous Marjorie Liu, and Sana Takeda.
So I hear.
Yes. Tiffany loves that series. It's a.
I heard about it from her, actually.
There you go. Yeah. No, it's true. And this guy 9947, Cap Brubaker, Loki Gillen, Deadpool Kelly, Iron Fist Fraction, Moon Knight Houston, and so forth. We said a few of these. Green Lantern Johns is one of the big ones. Yeah, it's a very good list.
Yeah, I forgot people were really into that Kieran Gillen Loki series. Now that was the first time he became like the god of stories and everything. Obviously, anything Brubaker touched in that area is amazing. Yeah, the Fraction Iron Fist, that's also the one that everyone just keeps chasing. It was never that good ever again.
No, it's true. And I will give a kind of like, is it a shout out or rather like just any kind of appreciation for. If ever the Eternals was going to have a definitive run, for the longest time it was Neil Gaiman's miniseries, and now it's Kieran Gillen's book.
You know what? I wholeheartedly agree. I almost missed this one if I wasn't like a sick completionist and wanted to catch up on this for Avengers versus X-Men versus Eternals. Yeah. I read the whole thing in like two sittings, and I was not disappointed. I love the stuff that reminds me of Highlander. It's probably the best Thanos has been as a villain in a very long time.
Yep.
And again, it really hits that tragedy. Again, I cannot help but compare it to Highlander every time, but who wants to live forever? Who wants to love forever?
Rip Phoenix Jones. What about Kate's Venom and Ewing's Immortal Hulk? We talk about them, and they are great. Click Commander, I got to shout out a couple of my favorite modern classic runs, like Hickman's Avengers, New Avengers, and Johns' Green Lantern run. Yes, I agree with that.
It's funny. Hickman's Avengers, I never quite caught the fever on, but I loved where it all went. And weirdly, I didn't feel like I missed anything by not reading his Avengers when I eventually read Secret Wars.
Yeah, I appreciate them. I didn't like them.
Yeah, I would have put John's Green Lantern on here too, but I think that one's too old. I think that one's over 20 years old now at this point.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, that makes sense. Matt Herdney. Hi, guys. First time watching live. Although, welcome to the show, Matt. Keep it up. Do you think the abundance of collected editions has helped or hurt the stories in ongoing series? I think that getting books into the hands of people, whether like... If a book in a collected edition gets into the hands of a reader, it means that the direct market single floppy edition did not. So whatever catches them works for me.
Yeah, I mean, whatever gets books in hands isn't that good.
Exactly. Jay Sage, justice for Jaime and Sideways.
Yeah.
Could have had 2 DC Spider-Men. Potential.
Yeah.
Have a great day. Both got tendonitis, and you guys are helping me out. Well, get well soon.
Yeah,
my friend.
man, that sucks.
Yeah, poor Sideways. Oh well. CJ Lords, love the show. My first classic run coming out when I was a teen was Wolverine and the X-Men. Loved Dupe and the return to a classic school setting. Wolverine and the X-Men is one of those books that like nobody talks about.
No, it's true.
And I like that idea of you know, of that series. Cam, has anyone addressed Wade and Waringo's FF run? We haven't, but I do know what you're talking about, and I think it is a fantastic book. You know, the Fantastic Four don't really lend themselves to like celebration because people don't read the book.
That's why I really want to put Marvel 2-in-1 in there. It's like, no, I did read a Fantastic Four and it was good.
Yeah. It Wade and Waringo's run was a great run. Cap lives to say Ta-Nehisi Coates' Black Panther run, or I'd say that. The movies took a lot of inspiration, and I think we haven't hit that level with Black Panther since.
They did, and again, it did feel huge because of the movie Manny and everything. Also, too, Ta-Nehisi Coates kind of teaching himself to write comics on the fly, which is pretty interesting because he had mostly been like, like a writer of news and everything. So it's kind of cool to see him come into his own in that series. I know I kind of struggled in the first couple volumes because I'm like, oh man, this is really wordy.
Yeah, that's how I approached it as well.
But he eventually figured it out. He eventually became a pretty goddamn good comic writer. Oh, again, no, it's that's a limited series. Sorry, I was going to say other history of the DC universe, but that's a limited series. That's not a run.
AK, I can't stay. Well, we'll see on the repeat, but I wanted to drop some money in the pot and shout out to G. Willow Wilson's Ms. Marvel and Ryan North's Squirrel Girl as a modern classic.
We kind of got to give Squirrel Girl its flowers too, because it ran for so long, became a huge deal, and Squirrel Girl is only as big as she is now because of that series. Similarly, Spider-Gwen Poole, which also had their moments in the sun there, to where now they are part of the Marvel universe now.
Yeah, that's true. Corey McGivney, you referenced TMNT, but Transformers More Than Meets the Eye from IDW is one of my favorite comic runs of all time. I never thought I would openly over Megatron of all characters. Everyone who reads that series loves it to death and wants me to read it.
So there's got to be something to it.
I agree. I think that like Transformers, it's one of those properties where you immediately discount it because it's like it's a cartoon show, it's a toy commercial, but like it really resonates with people, and if there's ever going to be a definitive run of Transformers, I think that's it. Yeah. Unless you read Daniel Warren Johnson's, which is coming out soon.
Oh yeah, that's right. It is. Yeah, I'm excited for that. How many wrestling moves is he going to put in itself?
All of them.
Yay.
Every page.
Yay. Also, it wasn't a run; it was a mini. But if we're talking Daniel Warren Johnson, his Beta Ray Bill was fucking beautiful and like almost made me cry.
Yeah, Danny Warren Johnson just needs to have like an episode dedicated to him. Dead Earth, that's a mini series, but Beta Ray Bill is one of those things where it is best, one of the best books of the year.
I mean, if Beta Ray Bill can throw a freaking Okada Rainmaker elbow, I'm in.
Drew Markham, Daredevil has had some solid modern runs from Bendis to Zdarsky. Which would you consider a classic?
I mean,
I'd say all of them.
All of them. Yeah, he has more classic runs than anybody.
Yeah, it's true. Girk Pectus, I think John Ridley's Black Panther is a modern classic. He introduced so many interesting Wakandan concepts like democracy, spies in Krakoa, etc. That's fair.
Things about that too. Also, just John Ridley in general putting in a lot of really good work recently.
Yeah, John Ridley became a new critical darling lately.
Sure did.
Joshy Lee, is it too early to talk about Jason Aaron's Punisher in the Hand storyline? Because that's the most I've liked Punisher in a long time.
Oh, we talked
about
it.
We always talk about it. Agree with you, my friend. Dustin Zimbala, Remender's Venom is underrated as AF about my favorite book ever. Yeah, the Remender run.
The Flash series, it was kind of an under-the-radar thing, but I think people have really come to appreciate it in the years since. And yeah, it kind of holds up. I read it years after it was done, and I'm like, oh shit, this is good.
Yeah. Ozzy Albor, can't stay for the live, but I'll be back. Love you guys. Well, that's a great Terminator line. I appreciate it, my friend. Drew Markham, I hope time is kind to Jeremy Adams' Flash and Cy Spurrier's Constantine.
Oh yeah,
Cy Spurrier's Constantine, Cy Spurrier's Hellblazer's been, that is as good as it gets. It ate Tom Taylor's lunch.
Yeah, so you were saying.
Yeah, Cy Spurrier is an underrated. Cy Spurrier is like like if you using like Moneyball as an example, like he is one of those underrated players that like you just put him on a book one day and
it's true. And I'm probably going to read his Flash now because of that. And also, hey, while we're on the subject of Spurrier, I know he said we didn't want to make this the X-Men Krakoa hour and everything.
Sure.
But his Way of X series with Nightcrawler and everything, not the one that came after, but the one before where it was all like one and done issues.
Yeah.
That was magical. That was like, oh, wow, this is nuanced, mature storytelling for adults using superheroes to talk about subjects of, religion and faith and life after death and everything.
Absolutely.
There. This is an intelligent ass book. And then it ended in a big dumb punch up with Onslaught. I did not like how that one ended, but it's still really good.
Matthew Schmidt, maybe an unpopular opinion, but the New 52 Wonder Woman run really got me into the character and made me a lifelong fan. Thanks for all you guys do. Brian Azzarello and Cliff Chong's Wonder Woman was another definitive run. It is a modern classic on Wonder Woman.
I tried multiple times to read it, and it just didn't do it for me.
That's fair. You may like the Tom King run. We'll see.
I might. Again, I know it came out. I wanted to read that, and I wanted to read
it's not
Penguin.
out yet. I just know he sent... Penguin is great.
Is it? Because, again, I almost picked it up this week because I got so many animated shows to watch now. I didn't have time for it.
Yeah. No, Penguin is great. Wonder Woman is cool.
It seemed like something I might enjoy.
Heartless Fang, I know you guys already mentioned Hickman, but any of his big runs not in the running for Modern Classics. Much love to you guys.
He did a Fantastic Four before that. He did a lot of stuff.
That counts. His Fantastic Four run, I think, counts more than his Avengers runs.
And it kind of gets better with time, too, because it's kind of the font from which so many other ideas spring.
It was the bedrock for his entire Marvel thing. As Evil Mathematician will attest. Past revival productions, what would you guys say has similar appeal to superheroes? Wrestling?
Soap operas?
Yep.
Old movie serials and radio plays because they're also sequential storytelling.
Exactly. Disposable sequential storytelling. Richie, what's going on, you guys? To me, Daredevil has the best run in comics since Frank Miller started writing back then. Yeah, that's fair.
It's been win after win. Everyone has been really solid. Even the ones that you don't remember as much, like the Diggle run is still fucking awesome.
Right. The Diggle run is good. I don't care for, there's one run that I'm like, that is not good. And he is getting another run on that character coming up soon. You can read between the lines. Get shitty. Ram V and John Pearson's The Swamp Thing. Yeah.
There's been some good stuff. Hell, Snyder had a good Swamp Thing run in the New 52.
Yeah. King had a special.
That's right.
The Swamp Thing is one of those things where I'm like, yeah, is that a modern classic? I think for some people it is, but I don't know. And I didn't read enough of it to be able to say I loved it enough for me to just cheat and put it on my list anyway.
Hell, King's Swamp Thing story in Batman is one of his Batman stories I actually genuinely truly like.
That was good, yeah.
It was. I'm like, you know what? You turn me off on all the other stuff. I like this. More of this, please.
Exactly. I like this. Hal frickin' Jones, has there ever been a good solo Blade book in the past? Also, Sal bought Rogues last week. You're right. It deserved better as a Flash fan myself. Nice. Yes. Rogues is a good book. Check that out. Interestingly enough, I have at least 3 or 4 different volume 1s of Blade, and I haven't read most of them. But the new Blade is really good.
From Brian Edward Hill. Loved that first issue. Brian Edward Hill stuff is always kind of hit or miss for me. In fact, so much to the point, I think he thought I didn't like him for the longest time. But I really liked that one. I'm like, oh, this is a strong start for Blade. Look, when they go to the freaking Khmer Rouge Mountains near the end, I'm like, okay, well, this series can be anything now.
That's right. CJ Stevenson, in my opinion, I think Batman Hush and Court of Owls have become new modern generation defining Batman runs, for better, for worse. Maybe New 52 Wonder Woman.
It's so
definitely
sad
Wonder
we
Woman.
Don't have more to say about Wonder Woman.
I know. Hush is 20 years old, if not more. I don't remember.
In print.
Yeah, Hush is, everyone reads Hush, so that definitely counts. And Court of Owls, again, everyone counts that one. Matt Hendry, Grayson, beautiful art, unique take. See him by Kelly T. Captain Marvel, we did talk about. Grayson, we didn't, but yes, Grayson counts.
I like Grayson a whole lot. And also, hey, you know what? He never gets his due, but Tim Seeley's Nightwing run that came directly after that is also really good. In fact, he does a lot of the same stuff that Taylor is doing now. He also fights Blockbuster. He also goes back to Bloodhaven.
Yeah. What did Seeley write? Didn't he co-write it with King at some point, or a little bit?
He co-wrote Grayson with King, and then he
Yeah.
got to write Nightwing solo after that.
That's cool. That's cool.
For DC Rebirth. Yeah, there's lots of good stories there.
Yeah. And CJ Stevenson, the movies would have you believe that Jeff Johns' Justice League run is a modern classic, but how much of that is Johns pushing it up the hill? I would argue that everything that Johns wrote when he was in charge at DC was overinflated by his influence over the company. Like, I don't think Flashpoint, I don't think anyone would give a shit about Flashpoint if Johns didn't push it. I think the Flashpoint is a crappy book that is kind of good. It's great looking and it's kind of cool, but that's it.
It's so wild. I would love to see the alternate universe where Flashpoint was just another story in the Flash book, like he wanted it to be, like he was building it up to be. If you read his Flash, he's just like, yeah, man, Flashpoint is coming. It's a story we're going to be doing. Oh, it's a big event that involves everything now. Okay.
Yep. If it didn't have a cartoon movie, which was
really good,
which he was in charge of to be able to greenlight in the first place, then people wouldn't remember it. But yeah. So there you have it, folks. We've been here for a lot longer than I expected, but I should have counted on that because
when we get the ball rolling, we talk about shit we love.
Yeah, but I want to thank Joel for being here and for his incredible commentary and insight and ideas. I want to thank you guys for sponsoring today's show and for watching. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel and click the like button. It helps us out. Check out Joel on YouTube at Cape Joel, and we'll see you guys next week with an all-new episode of the Elseworlds Exchange. I'm Sal. I'm Joel. So long, everybody.